Good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar. We're happy to show you how you can streamline your AP invoice processing by using Ottimate and the connector to seamlessly integrate into D365 Finance and Operations. First, a few housekeeping tips. If you have technical or content-related questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A window, and we will address your questions. Closed captioning is available by selecting the CC button in the bottom right corner of your media player screen. You can expand, minimize, and move each of the window panes displayed on your screen if needed. This presentation is being recorded, and we will send all registrants a link to the recording post-webinar. For our agenda today, we have our introduction, a process walkthrough, who is Ottimate, the demo, and a Q&A section. For our presenters today, we have myself, Shibeli Cáceres, Commerce Senior Consultant with the Argano team. We have Patrick Nguyen, Partner Manager with the Ottimate team, and Dijon Olav, Partner Enablement Manager with the Ottimate team as well. Argano is an award-winning Microsoft partner. We recently won the Inner Circle Award, which recognizes the top 1% of all Microsoft partners for our 6th year in a row. We focus on business applications and low-code specialization on the Azure and Power Platform. Argano has an exciting set of IP that we have developed for our customers, including but not limited to one-step consolidation and data and security manager. If any of these are of interest, please feel free to reach out to Microsoft@argano.com. All right, let's jump into the process walkthrough. At a high level, today we will be reviewing the process flows for both non-PO and PO invoices through Ottimate and D365. We begin with non-PO invoices. We start in the Ottimate system, where the non-PO invoice is entered, received, and loaded. From there, a user will manually approve that invoice. Once it's approved, it will be sent to the middleware, which will facilitate the secure data transfer through the DMF, Data Management Framework. Once that's completed, it will land in D365 under the under the vendor invoice journal form, and the journal invoice will be in open status. From there, the user can go ahead and post the invoice or elect to set up a posting batch job. And that is the end of our process for non-PO invoices. For PO invoices, we start in D365. Our product receipts are posted and prepared for invoice processing. So once that product receipt is posted on the purchase order, the middleware will facilitate that secure data transfer back to Ottimate. Once it lands in Ottimate, there will be an automatic batch process, which can be 2-way or 3-way match, depending on your needs. And that will go ahead and match with the PO. If there is a match, the approved invoices will be sent back through the middleware to D365 using, again, DMF. Once the pending vendor invoices land in D365, they can either be posted by the user manually, or they can be posted using the vendor invoice workflow. If there is not a match back to the Ottimate section, we would initiate a manual review and fix. Then we would send those approved invoices into D365, and then we would go ahead and review those invoices and post them, or have the workflow auto post. And that's the end of the process. So now I'll turn it over to Patrick Nguyen, who will tell us more about Ottimate.
Thank you, Shibeli. A little history on Ottimate. Ottimate was founded in 2014, so we have been in business now for 10 years. We're an AP automation solution first, and that's where we came from. Today, we're processing over 75,000 invoices per day for all of our clients, with over 30,000 locations for our clients. And according to over 100 different G2 customer reviews, Automate offers, as you can see here, industry inclusive solution where we covered the grocery retail space, hospitality, construction, nonprofits, healthcare, manufacturing, and a lot of things as it relates to accounting and bookkeeping organizations as well. Our solution is really easy to implement and administer as we train our users. Superior product support, that's all inclusive with our solution. Seamless integration with Dynamics 365 finance and operations, comprehensive feature updates that we provide because our solution is cloud, and confidence in accuracy. And we'll touch more on that. We are an AP solution first, like I mentioned earlier, is our priority. And we're more than just an OCR front end to capture invoices. Our OCR, or machine learning AI technology, is powered by machine learning. It's very deeply intuitive with automation and capturing the data on invoices, so you don't have to create a separate template for each and every vendor. Our solution is very intuitive that way. And on-demand features such as 2- and 3-way matching, multi-entity management if you have multiple companies and multiple entities, instant capturing of line item, and the line item for PO-based invoices. We do have vendor payment capability, which we'll touch on, and unlimited users. Our solution, we do not charge by users. You can have one user or 1,000 users, thousands of users. We really don't care how many users. And ideally, we want as many users of the system as possible to leverage the workflow capability and whatnot for your organization. Process automation definitely improves functionality within your organization by utilizing Automate for your AP process. We can set up workflows, multiple dimensions, and our integration with D365. A little overview on Automate before we go into the demo. Automate, when invoices, we can pick it up many different ways. We can pick up invoices from email. If you get vendors sending email invoices over to you, they can get brought in directly into Automate. If they're paper, you can scan them directly into Automate. You could even use your mobile device and take a picture and upload the invoice that way as well. We can also pick up invoices via EDI. So if you get vendors that send you EDI invoices, we could pick up EDI as well. Once invoices are in our system, we do the AI machine OCR and pick up all the header, footer, and line items if it's a PO-based invoice, and we do the matching. Once things are matched, or if there's any discrepancies, it can go through an approval workflow that is very configurable based on your requirements. It could be a linear type of workflow, or it could be multiple routed conditions set up in the system. You could have multiple people at one step and set up conditions that way based on vendor, based on user, based on dollar amount, what have you. And we could even auto code invoices if they're non-purchase related invoices. We do, like I mentioned earlier, have a multi-entity and unlimited dimensions with our solution. So no matter how many dimensions you have set up inside finance and operations, we can leverage what you have there and set it up and mirror that within our system as well within Automate. And we are a digital filing cabinet, so you could store the image of the invoice for as long as you need within our system. Vendor pay and spend are two additional modules you could add on to Automate. So think about if you want to utilize Automate to pay your vendors via ACH, paper check, or virtual credit cards. We have that capability, as well as spend management for expense reporting for internal expenses as well. And Automate is always talking to D365. So with our integration and working with Argano and the team there, we've built an integration to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Think about as you grow, don't have to need to backfill AP. or add AP folks to leverage your growth, deep integration capability, detailed mapping, and a source of documents where we link everything back to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. With that, at this point, I am going to turn things over to Dejan and from my team, and we're going to jump right into the demo. Dejan?
Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. Excited to walk the team here through the Automate offering. So here, again, as Patrick mentioned, Automate is the best-in-class accounts payable vendor payment, as well as purchase order matching automation solution. And Automate, if we were to toggle into all top left, all locations, here we see Automate can actually help construction organizations, whether they're managing multiple projects or having multiple project managers oversee their specific areas of the business, food and beverage operators, healthcare organizations, manufacturing, nonprofit, as well as retail clients. Our whole goal is to help clients close the books quicker with minimal human error involved in their process. So whenever a client would log in, this is the Automate dashboard. Here we see Mark. Mark is an entrepreneur extraordinaire where within his portfolio, he has a number of businesses that he manages within his Automate offering, as well as having all access to all features available in the Automate platform. As well as Patrick mentioned, we do provide clients with unlimited users as well. As in terms of setting up those user permissions within the settings tab here, this is essentially Mark can actually control the invoice process, like who's approving upon invoices before exporting into Microsoft Dynamics F&O. He can control who's approving upon vendor payments before payments are executed in our system or D365, as well as managing any user-defined workflows regarding purchase order matching or purchase order functionality in our system. So really quickly, uploading an invoice is fairly simple and easy. In our system, we click that big blue upload button, and we do provide clients with 4 main methods of uploading invoices to the Automate offering. And I would say most commonly used would be that location-specific email address right underneath the browser computer button. Essentially, we provide that to the vendor. The vendor can actually send invoices directly to Automate, so making life a lot easier from a user standpoint. We also provide clients with the ability to scan invoices into our system, whether it be individual invoices or batch files of invoices. So no paper separated pages necessary as well, whether it's a batch file of 10, 50, 300 invoices, it truly doesn't matter in our system. Drop them in the feeder scanner and hit upload. We also provide clients with mobile access available on Android as well as iPhone. They can snap a photo of the invoice real time, whether you're working remotely or in the field, it does not matter. And we also have capabilities of ingesting EDI, electronic data interchange. So if any of the clients here today are working with big broadline vendors, we can essentially take those EDI feeds and have them ingested into Automate, where we actually take that EDI feed and re-engineer that into a readable image of an invoice for the client to review and approve upon before exporting into Dynamics 365 F&O. So I just pulled up an image of an invoice living within the Automate platform. And on the left-hand side, clients always have access to obviously view the physical record of what was uploaded, whether it be picture, scan, email, or EDI. And on the right-hand side, we see the result of Automate's OCR AI machine learning processes. We actually process the header details first to keep everything nice, neat, and organized for the client, as well as all the line item detail there below. And within the Automate offering, we do offer one-click mapping rules. So you can actually teach the system over time how to handle vendor invoices when they do come in. So using this Nessie vendor invoice as an example, we can see this client actually mapped and coded one time, teaching the system how to handle this invoice going forward. And I also do want to point out with the account splits tab next to the line item tab, that's really where you can view the general ledger summaries, the dimensional summaries. That's the information that would be syncing over into your Dynamics F&O, 365 F&O accounting system, as well as with the approvals tab. Essentially, you can add ad hoc approvers to a specific invoice if you choose to. And we also have a history tab that contains a complete audit trail and all history associated to this invoice, who took action upon it, who may have made any modifications per se. You do have access to all that history, as well as access to internal communications where, let's say, if you need to, if the purchasing team needs to reach out to someone on the accounting team, it provides great use for internal communication leveraging the Ottimate platform. So I do want to touch upon any clients needing purchase order functionality or purchase order matching in our system. Ottimate does have the capability of allowing clients purchase order matching, whether it be two-way match or three-way match. And in specific to retail grocery clients, we do have a DSD direct store delivery workflows, depending on what your requirements are. We can actually plug and play, make your life a lot easier in terms of alleviating all the manual work and efforts that come into dealing with matching purchase orders to receivers, receipts in our system. Speaking specifically to smaller retailers, retail operators who aren't actually utilizing a purchasing tool or creating POs or receivers in their ERP today, but leveraging maybe an IMS solution today, like an inventory management system. Essentially, we can facilitate a catalog match by pulling in the item price catalog from your price book, living within your IMS system into Ottimate, where we're capturing the file with the vendor item, the IMS inventory item, the unit, pack size, unit cost, and essentially providing the client with a price variance, which would be under the price, within the line item section. For larger retailer operators who are leveraging or utilizing a purchasing tool or creating POs, receivers in their ERP, we cannot, in addition to the IMS system, we can actually facilitate or provide catalog matching to those clients as well. But obviously, having more robust technology, more robust technology stack, we can get even granular in terms of providing a user-defined workflow that best suits your organization. So depending on what you require, we're able to plug and play. So I just jumped into our purchase order matching tool here today, and I am going to use the Nessie Foods invoice as an example to walk you through in terms of how our system can handle the purchase order matching in the Ottimate offering. Whenever a client is looking to facilitate a purchase order match within the Ottimate offering, we can actually pull over the POs as well as the receivers into the Ottimate system to make life a lot easier in regards to the matching process. So after you sync the POs and receivers into the system and using that Nessie Foods as an example here. So now we're actually looking at the receipt with all the receipt details here below. And in the Ottimate system, you can actually receive, and if you're not receiving in our system today or receiving in your system today, we can actually skip that step here today. But just for demonstration purposes, I just wanted to show you how information flows through the Ottimate system. So hypothetically speaking, if we were to receive this in our system, we would just have to click review and actually be able to see and review this information. So now we have our receipt number up top, our purchase order number up top as well as all that line item detail stemming from the receipt, as well as a possible invoice we can link to this PO. So now we have a fully matched state after linking that PO to that invoice. And again, we can do the cross-referencing, not needing multiple screens, leveraging Ottimate system here today. We see that it's in a match state, and we can even drill down to the invoice itself and get a bird's eye view of what is actually being matched. I do want to point out for any operators that need this functionality, we can include or embed multiples of receipts, multiples of POs, so no worries there. I also do want to point out for the approval workflow, actually, let me take a step back. So once an invoice has been mapped, coded, and matched in our system, essentially it's pretty much ready to be exported as into the Microsoft Dynamics F&O system. And if needed, the client can actually set user-defined workflows if they require additional steps in that process. So in terms of the invoice workflow, it's fairly simple and easy to navigate in the Ottimate offering. Within the Needs Attention tab, that contains any invoices that need user attention. Ottimate will actually tell you why it's living there, whether it's a missing dimension, maybe an invoice needs to be mapped, duplicate invoice, whatever the case is, Ottimate will alert the user as to why it's living in that Needs Attention tab and why the user and what actions the user needs to take to mitigate that situation. Once an invoice has been mapped and coded, we do have mapping rules embedded in our solution. So one-click mapping rules, as I mentioned, essentially that would start that configurable approval workflow, as Patrick mentioned earlier. So I do want to point out here, Mark, as the administrator for this account, I'm viewing my approvals for this Nestle Foods invoice here. Your approval bucket contains any invoices that need my specific attention, marks specific attention. Pending approvals contain any invoices that need additional users embedded in that workflow. As the administrator in this account, I can approve upon for other team members within my organization if I choose to. But once invoices land in the approved bucket, that's essentially where we're exporting all PO-based invoices, non-PO-based invoices, an image of the invoice itself that the client uploaded into the Ottimate offering into Dynamics 365 F&O as if they manually entered it themselves. And as I mentioned before, we do allow clients within the Ottimate offering to have unlimited users embedded into their or on their Ottimate account. So there are no per user license fees involved in our platform. It's unlimited. So you can think of anyone who's going through an audit per se, they can give that auditor a view only permission. You can have someone at the front of the house just responsible for uploading invoices. You can get as granular as you need to. There is no limitation in our system. For any clients wanting to control who's approving upon invoices before export into Dynamics 365 F&O, you can absolutely do that. You can even handle or take it to the level of having certain approvers view which payments need to be approved before any users actually payments are initiated, and as well as requisition purchase order approval workflow, so clients can actually control which project managers are taking action on certain variances, or when a scenario arises when a certain PO or receiver is outside a certain threshold set by the user's requirements. So you can actually assign users to take action depending on the invoice approval workflow, the payment approval workflow, as well as the requisition purchase order workflow. And that's pretty much, as I mentioned before, once an invoice lives in this approved tab, it's ready to be synced into Dynamics 365 F&O via the API integration. So this is seamless integration. No extra steps, no drag and drop. And another aspect of the Ottimate offering, I do want to point out, we do have statement reconciliation. So you can actually upload vendor statements as well into the Ottimate offering. And since Ottimate sits your digital file cabinet housing all invoices living within the system, we can actually identify any invoices not living within our system, which is shown on the right-hand side, as we've done for this client here. All missing invoices stemming from that Gordon Foods Service vendor statement on the left-hand side have been identified for the client to take action. And once we click that email vendor button, essentially we can actually, let me actually click it. We can actually have a pre-populated email ready to be sent to the vendor. So once the vendor sends along the corrected invoices to the Ottimate platform, those corrected invoices would then go through the client's approval workflow, ultimately till they are reconciled on behalf of the client. So making life a lot easier in regards to making sure all of your credits have been received, any missing invoices have been collected by the vendor. This allows for a very much easier and simpler close of books before the end of month. Generally, this is sitting on the accountant's desk before the close of books period. And last but not least, we also provide clients with the option to pay vendors as well. If you choose not to pay vendors, obviously utilizing your D365 F&O payment solution. But within the vendor payment module, clients would have access to check, ACH, as well as virtual card payment methods. With the virtual card option, there is a cashback rebate as well. So it could either subsidize the subscription cost, or depending on how you want to handle that, you can, again, the whole goal is to make life a lot easier in terms of handling your payment methods. And if I were to schedule all of my payments in the Ottimate offering, I would have a running tally up top. I can bulk schedule up into a year in advance if I'm looking to just get a lump sum out and just make life a lot easier in terms of handling my payments. If I want to handle it in a more sort of strategic fashion, issuing my check runs, I can view my check runs by specific location, company, or even bank account. So getting more granular in terms of having controls, payment controls over, let's say, having more cash flow visibility, more internal controls over which vendors, which invoices I choose to pay during that payment period. Maybe I'm on a specific budget, depending on what my requirements are for my organization. And last but not, actually in the next step, once we actually create that payment from that check run, that would trigger the client's configurable payment approval workflow. So mark here as the administrator, this is my bucket for payment approvals. And if I were to actually click in, actually once I hit approve, a check ACH or virtual card would be initiated. And if I were to click into, let's say, the pending export tab, this is really where we're closing out the loop, closing the cycle, getting that payment file back into your Dynamics 365 F&O. And like the whole goal is making life a lot easier and having all of your invoices, payments, any purchase order functionality detail embedded into the Automate solution. So if you do need to check anything for any situation, any reason, it's one click away. And regarding payments in the Automate offering, I do want to point out for, let's say, this USSRT, let's say Kronos here as this vendor is reaching out to me saying, hey, Dijon, where's my $624 check? Within my Automate offering, I see that a check has been sent out on my behalf. So I would click that check image button there, which would actually bring me to what was sent on my behalf, whether it be check, ACH, or virtual card. Automate houses all payment methods executed in our system. So obviously, if you're issuing a check, ACH, or virtual card, you would have records of that stub as well. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. We have all the payment details stemming from this check up top with all the pertinent details, as well as a remittance below, as well as an image of the back of the check below the remittance. So everyone's on the same page. There is no opportunity to be double billed within the Automate offering. And in terms of the payment methods, we're different from other payment solutions where it's a one-to-one bank rec. So it's much easier in terms of reconciling rather than the lump sum escrow account, which is what most operators are primarily used to. And this is where I believe I will pass it over to Shabeli.
Thank you, Dijon. Now we are back in D365. So think back to starting with the PO, so the purchase order process, right? So Dijon has flowed through Automate and the processing and the match. So when we land in D365, we land on the pending vendor invoices screen. And it looks just like this, right? Your open invoice will show on this screen. And, we can do a few things here. On this example, we have the workflow on, the vendor invoice workflow on that will allow the system to auto approve and post, right? And we know that because the wheel next to the invoice number is displayed, which means that that invoice specifically has been submitted to the workflow automatically. So that is a no-touch process, which would allow users to basically see that invoice posted without having to go in and manually do it. And so if we want to look at that workflow history, on the next slide, we can see that if you click on that workflow button, you see the vendor invoice workflow, and you can view that history there. Under the workflow history, it shows us the various steps that invoice has gone through within D365 to reach a status of posted. And so we start with that submission. And so what you would see there is, the user that is attached to that invoice coming from Automate would show as the submitter. From there, it will begin the automatic posting job. Once posting is succeeded, it will then timestamp that invoice, and then it'll show that the workflow is complete. This is also where you will be able to see if there are any errors with that invoice, and it'll show you, here's an error. Then you can click into that error and review what's going on, make the necessary changes, and then resubmit to the workflow for posting. The alternative here is if we do not want to use that workflow, that you would wait for that vendor invoice to land on this form. And from there, you would actually click into it using the invoice number. Once within the invoice, we would review the invoice header, the appropriate lines to make sure that it has everything that we need. We would update that match status if it's not already in past, and then we would go ahead and post manually. Once this invoice is posted, then it is available for payment within the system. So you have the option, with standard D365 to create a payment proposal or to process those payments individually depending on when you do your payment runs. So then we go back to the non-PO process. When non-PO invoices are received from Ottimate, they land in the invoice journal form as displayed here. Once received, the user can actually review the journal and post manually. Again, another option here is to go ahead and set up a recurring batch job to auto post these journals based on a specific journal number or journal name that you have set up for Ottimate invoice journals, and that would run in the background. Once this is posted again, the invoice is available for payment in the system, as I mentioned before with the PO invoices. And so we wanted to go ahead and remind you of what we just saw. So we saw the power of how purchase order and non-purchase order invoices can be automatically read and matched in Ottimate, then seamlessly connected into D365, where they can be auto-posted and paid in just a few steps. If you would like to learn more, we're happy to have a deeper dive into the topics presented. Please feel free to reach out to Microsoft@argano.com. So I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Yes, thanks, Chabeli. So we do have a couple questions that came in for you folks. One is, can we allocate a vendor invoice to multiple entities? I don't know who wants to take that.
Yes, our tool is built on multi-entity management. It's kind of the backbone of our solution, where obviously working with hospitality, retail organizations, they may have a location like let's say an invoice comes in, needs to be approved by multiple department heads, or let's say a multi-location entity needs to split an invoice across multiple locations, or taking it to the extent of needing the ability to handle intercompany transactions. That is one of the core benefits of our solution.
Great. There's another one that came in. How flexible is the approval workflow?
In Ottimate, am I correct there?
Yes.
Okay. The approval workflow is very, very flexible depending on what the client requires, whether you want a specific user to view invoices by vendor, dollar amount more than less than, by specific dimensions or specific general ledger. You can have it built upon multi-tiered policies rather than just a linear policy. So whatever you require, even if you want to take it to the extent of having multiple approvers on that invoice, or having, let's say, a hierarchy where there's approver number 1, approver number 2, approver number 3, depending on what you require, we're able to plug and play. Again, we have flexible approval workflows on the invoice workflow, the payment approval workflow, as well as the user-defined workflows around how clients want to handle the variances or whatever comes from an outside threshold scenario, whether they want to assign a project manager, or whatever action needs to be taken next, they can actually embed that approval workflow into the Ottimate offering.
Perfect. And then another question that came in is the integration between Ottimate and D365 a two-way integration? Maybe Chabeli?
Yes, I can take that. So it is. It's going to, because we start in D365, that product receipt is pushed into Ottimate. And then once Ottimate receives that product receipt and that invoice is created and three-way matched, then that is pushed back into D365.
Great. And then one last question that came in is, what are all the ways that we can bring vendor invoices into the system? Might be an Ottimate question.
Yeah, I think I could answer that. Yeah, there's 4 methods to bring in invoices. One is if it's paper, you can scan it in directly into Ottimate. If it is, we could take invoices via EDI. So if your vendor actually sends you over invoices via EDI, you could bring it in that way. You can choose another option as option 3, which is if it's paper, you could actually take a picture of it with your mobile device and upload it that way. We support iOS and Android compatible mobile devices. We have an app on those 2 stores. And then the fourth way, which is the most common way and most efficient way, which is beyond EDI, is your invoices being sent and received from your vendors via email. We could pick it up directly from email and bring it into our system.
And I would say best practice would be a combination of EDI because they're sent directly from the vendor real time. There's no errors on their end, depending on obviously if the vendor makes an error. But there's also the combination of EDI as well as email. So there's no drag and drop. There's no extra manual intervention by the client or the user per se. And for all these, let's say, paper invoices that are received at the location physically, you can bulk scan batch files.
Great. Those are all the questions that came in. I don't know. Back to you, Chabeli.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining today and for your time. We encourage you to reach out to Microsoft at argano.com if you have any questions or concerns, and have a great day.